such a close game. Here's Gregg Popovich.
It appeared as though you were calling loudly for a foul at the end. What happened there? Was there a miscommunication?
Well, obviously, he didn't hear anybody because he didn't foul.
Anyone else?
What contributed to the poor shooting start? Was it more their defense, what they were doing?
You never know the answer to a question like that. It's always both.
Coach, your overall thoughts of the season? You know, group of new guys together, still get it to a game 7 first
They
round.
did a good job. You know, I think that they hung together real well, and you know, they just played the second seed and played them 11 times. It's, you know, 5 and 6 in those 11 games. So they've done well for themselves, having never played with each other a minute before this season. And some of the young kids that developed in the D League came up and did a good job during the season. So I think they were really quick to learn a new system and learn about each other as the season progressed. So I think they did a really good job. It's always disappointing to lose, but you have to congratulate the Nuggets. Michael Malone did a great job, he and his staff, GM Conley, putting the group together. They've been together a few years now, and it's starting to show. There's a reason why they're second in the West. So congratulations to those guys. I thought they did a great job. Tonight was an odd game. I thought, you know, both teams set basketball back in the first half. Get a glass of wine and watch it on TV, but it got better. The best part for us was we hung in there. I thought we played aggressively enough to win for about a quarter and a half. We just didn't have the same pace and aggressiveness for about 2.5 quarters, and then finally got it and then made it a basketball game. So that's disappointing, but nice to see that the group didn't hang their heads and came back in and had an opportunity. But Denver, they did a great job. I'm really happy for them in a strange sort of way.
Your thoughts on Nikola Jokic? You had a great one in Tim Duncan. I don't want to put him up there with Tim, but your thoughts on the way he plays the game? Yeah, a little bit too early for that, but your thoughts on the way Jokic plays the game?
Have you been in these sessions before? I've said this like 10 times, and I'm not writing your article for you. Ask one of your colleagues. He's magnificent. Magnificent. I'll just leave it at that.
Pop, you mentioned.
Yes.
You mentioned to Jabari that this was a new team and you liked the way it came along. Are you kind of excited about a second year with the same group and your contract is up? Do you expect to sign a new one?
I won't be the same team because DeJounte Murray will come back, and you know he's our best defender. You know, he was our point guard when we lost him at the beginning of the year. That made it tough. Well, Derek wasn't there either, was he? He was hurt, but Bryn Forbes was the point guard. Scared the hell out of him. But it helped him progress as a player for sure. So it'll be a different team just simply because DeJounte will be back, assuming everything goes well. So we were expecting big things out of him. So the team will be deeper, obviously, next year. But be that as it may, the West is tough. There's other teams that didn't make the playoffs. They're going to be hungry to get into the playoffs. It's a lot of good teams. Okay. Have a good weekend.
So it's the first time in the Gregg Popovich era, which started in 1997, that the Spurs have lost in the first round in back-to-back years. And you heard him mention DeJounte Murray because it's easy to forget about it because of the season that the Spurs have had. But he was supposed to be their young one of their cornerstones to go along with DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. So the fact that they get him back next year, that's already an addition that Pop clearly is looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it wasn't easy for me to forget Murray just because of the simple fact that when I had the opportunity to, sit down with Pop and talk to him, he was just saying, the most important thing is the development of Murray and what he brings to the table and his tangibles, and he's going to be out there for lengthy periods of time. So to see him not out there, that's a void that they couldn't fill in that space. But best believe next year, they'll have a special year.
They will, and having him back. But I think it's a testament to the Spurs development program, their G League and what they do, because they're able to bring guys up that are younger, that a lot of people may not have heard of, that develop and become good players. And then you got to add Murray back to this group. The Spurs will continue. They'll continue to get better. They always believe next man up, and the next man usually somebody is prepared to step in those shoes. And so, as Pop said, the West is going to be good. Teams that didn't make the play are going to be trying to get there. But rest assured that the Spurs will be back.
So Nikola Jokic with an impressive performance, but it was a rare one. 20-plus points, 15-plus rebounds, 10-plus assists. And in Game 7, last time that happened, 1988, James Worthy did that. So think about that, how long that's been. And we know big game James. So even though Jokic isn't the guy that's taking the shot on every possession at the end of games, I mean, that's a big contribution from him.
Yeah, well, the thing about him, he does all the little things. If a shot goes up, he tries to rebound every rebound. If there's a pass he made, he wants to make the best pass, and then he'll take shots. He's not out there trying to just do one facet of the game. He's out there trying to do it all, and that's great for him because the fact is he's a complete player, a complete basketball player, especially as a big man, to be able to pass like he can, to rebound like he can, and to score. You don't find that in a lot of big guys that are willing to do all those facets of the game. It's like, Bill Walton, who did a lot of those things.
I think you really touch on it, man, when you say he does everything and he's a complete player, because so many times you're just a designated guy to score the basketball. You're a designated guy to defend and protect the paint, or a designated guy to facilitate, to keep the ball moving from an offensive standpoint. But for him, his responsibility is extremely heavy, and he does a remarkable job night in, game out, of just being consistent in that space.
And looking deep inside of the box score. Those 15 rebounds, 5 of them offensive. Big difference in this game. Denver, second chance points, they won 17-8. Right? So when you try to figure out, okay, what was the biggest difference in a game in which there were a lot of missed shots because the Spurs struggled to connect early on, and Jamal Murray 1 for 6. Those second chance points, really something you can hone on and look at Nikola Jokic as being a big part of that.
Yeah, and that's how you win Game 7. It's the little things. It's not Jamal Murray's floater, which it was big, but it's those second chance points to give you extra opportunities to rebound the basketball, especially in a game where there weren't a lot of points, especially in the first half. So when you get those second chance points, it gives extra rebounds. It's all those coaches always talk about. We got to do the little things. We got to get the hustle plays. And Denver does that, and they do it all year long. They do the hustle thing, and it starts with Jokic.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, Spurs ended up with just 8 offensive rebounds, right? So if you look at Jokic with 5 for the Nuggets, I mean, that's a big swing in that way. Let's talk a little bit about Jamal Murray. Started this game 1 for 6, but man, didn't lack confidence. 8 for 13 in the second half, and that includes that last three-pointer that almost went in. So really, he got hot when his team needed it most, but he had that confidence to keep taking the shots. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because here's Mike Malone.
Michael, there's so much work that goes into this ever since you got here. So when it happens, when you win a series against a team like that, what is sort of the first forefront emotion?
Yeah, obviously you're extremely happy and proud of your guys. To come so close the last 2 years and miss the playoff by 1 game, and to challenge every player in our roster to come back an improved player, and the buy-in, the commitment, all season long, all summer long coming into the year. And, this was a really hard-fought series. I mean, evenly matched. I think if we played 20 times, it'd be 10-10. It's just that kind of a matchup. But I love the grit, the resiliency, the toughness we played with tonight. And even late when they made their run, they're 2 veterans, DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, taking over the game. We never lost our composure. And for a young team to step up and make big plays down the stretch, Jamal Murray down the stretch was phenomenal. And, Nikola struggled to make shots in that fourth quarter, but he winds up going out and getting a triple-double. But the first reaction, Nick, is just really, really happy and proud of our guys. This is the first time Denver's won a Game 7, I think, in 40 years. It's a hell of a moment, but as I told our players, enjoy it for a few minutes. It's a quick turnaround. We've got Portland in 2 days, so we'll turn the page and start getting ready for them tomorrow.
Coach, the defensive effort tonight was obviously great for you guys. The improvement in that regard this season has been remarkable. Just wondering if you could reflect on your determination to make that a reality and the work your guys have put in to change the numbers and the narrative.
Yeah, to me it was really simple. The reason we have missed the playoffs 2 years in a row was because we were a bottom 5 defensive team, an elite offensive team, but we couldn't guard anybody. We were last in three-point defense last year. So to go from 30th to first in three-point defense is remarkable, and that's our players buying in, committing, giving multiple efforts. So I take great pride in that, the improvement, being a top 10 defense this year. And if you look at the 7 games, the 4 games that we won, our defense was really good. The 3 games that we lost, we guarded nobody. And we have a hell of a challenge waiting for us. A team that's been resting, getting ready, and Damian Lillard right now is playing at a whole nother level. So, you enjoy this for a second, and you start thinking about Portland and all the challenges they present. But proud of our guys, and the defense was a big part of our success in the series and on the season as a whole.
There was a lot of talk coming into the series about your guys' youth and kind of an experience and how it would look on a big stage when the brights were lighter. And Nikola comes out and just looks so poised throughout the series. To have your best player, who's also really young without a ton of any playoff experience, just have that calmness to him and that poise, can that trickle down to other guys on your roster?
You hope it does. I think it speaks to Nikola's greatness. I think it speaks to him never being afraid of the moment or never being overwhelmed. Like he always says, it's just basketball. Whether it's regular season game 54 or it's game 7, the end of the day, it's just basketball, and that's how he approaches it. And everybody else is different. They don't have Nikola's same personality, but anytime your best player has that kind of poise, leadership, that will definitely help the younger guys out. When things aren't going our way and they can look to him and they see calmness under pressure and under duress, yeah, I think that's a great thing to have, and that's how leadership is shown in many different ways, and that's why Nikola is a leader for our team.
Right here. You never trailed, but it was never easy. Have you ever had a game where you led basically from start to finish that was full of such, anxiety?
Anxiety is a good word, because, you get off to a great start. Our defense was just, incredible, especially in that first half. But we couldn't make a shot. So we were unable to take advantage of our defense because we were struggling to make shots. I think somebody told me, Pop said we set the game of basketball back 20 years. But I was just happy our defense was in the game early, especially coming off of Game 6. But we could never build a big enough lead because of our inability to shoot the ball. We go 2 of 20 from the three-point line tonight. And you still find a way to win the game, which I give our guys a ton of credit for, because a lot of times when you're not making shots, that takes away from your defensive intensity. And I never felt that tonight. Our guys had a next play mentality, and what a marked difference from Game 6 to 7 in terms of how we played, physically, aggressive, and a hell of a lot more discipline.
Michael, you talked the last couple days and all season just about how the Nuggets have fought to get home court advantage. Have you ever seen a game end like that where the Spurs couldn't hear whether or not to foul?
Yeah, there was kind of a crazy situation. Pop was on the court trying to get them to foul. They couldn't hear him. And our fans deserve so much credit. One of the things, I was just telling Josh Kroenke this, I love thinking about 4 years ago when I got this job, and you looked in the stands, it was witness protection night. There was nobody here. Oh, really? In 4 years, building this from within, building it internally with really good people, high character people, to see where we've come in 4 years, to being a team that won a Game 7 at home and advancing to the second round for the first time in a while is incredible. It's almost, surreal at times. And our fans have been phenomenal. The buy-in from our fans, that atmosphere tonight, every home game. We had the best home record in the NBA this year. Yes, because we have very good players. But more importantly, our fans showed up and made this a tremendously difficult place to play in. So great atmosphere, and we know the Nugget fans are going to bring it for round 2.
Mike, you talked about the challenges of preparing for Portland. Obviously, a different kind of team than what you just faced. How can you even approach something like that in one day?
Well, it's one thing I can maybe allude to would be during the regular season, we had the best record and third best record in NBA history on the second night of back-to-backs. And that to me shows our team is able to turn the page, refocus, and understand who we're playing the next night. So hopefully we can use some of that getting ready for Portland, because it is a challenge. They've been resting. They've been waiting for us, or San Antonio, whoever won tonight. But the good thing for us is they're a division opponent. We played them 4 times. We know them well, and we know their personnel well. Still going to be a hell of a challenge, but I think our guys are definitely excited for that challenge.
Coach, you were saying before the game that you'd play Jokic 48 minutes if you had to. You came up about 4.5 minutes short.
I'll make up for it next game.
Was that maybe the most impressive thing about him tonight, that he hung in there against a very physical defensive approach from the opposition for almost 44 minutes?
Yeah, we ask him to do so much. I mean, so 44 minutes in and of itself is pretty remarkable in a Game 7 for a guy that's never played this many games. And then you think about how much we ask him to do offensively and defensively, being the centerpiece of our offense, a guy that makes plays for everybody throughout the night. And defensively, he's guarding every pick and roll or in the post. I started questioning myself a little bit to start that fourth quarter. He missed his first 3 shots, and I said, you know what, maybe I should have gotten him out. Got him a quick break, because maybe that fatigue is starting to kick in. But then I said, I can't take him out. I got to keep him in the game, because even when he's not making shots, he has a tremendous impact on the game. He creates space for everybody else. Great players make all the other players better around them, and that's what Nikola does every night. So that's what we needed. I thought Mason Plumlee was terrific tonight off the bench, his best game of the series. I thought Malik Beasley's rebounding, 7 rebounds, was terrific. Late in the game, we had a possession. We got 3 or 4 straight offensive rebounds, which was a big part of that fourth quarter. So great team win. I'm so happy and excited for our group.
Coach, you generated a lot of open looks in this series, and you guys just missed a ton of them off of great action. Are there things that you think you can shore up and improve on going into that series versus Portland? And also, the other question is, going into these playoffs, the coaching staff, the players all said about how this would go. We don't know. We don't know until we get there. What did you learn from the first playoff series?
Oh, I think we learned that Nikola Jokic is a special player. I knew he'd play well. I didn't know that he would average near a triple-double in 7 games. You saw Jamal Murray, I think, in the 4 wins, he was spectacular. The 3 losses, he struggled. And that's a constant conversation between he and I about his challenge to be a great player will be consistency. And tonight, on the biggest stage in the biggest game, we don't win that game without Jamal Murray. Big shot after big shot. I think he had 16 points in the second half. So you learned that our guys understand what it's going to take. They're resilient, they're tough, and they believe in one another, which is really strong. What was the first question? Forget it? Yeah, I don't know. I'm one question at a time.
Coach, you've kind of mentioned this a bit. I haven't. There's a lot of things I think maybe people nationally don't know about this team, but the one thing I've never heard people nationally say or talk about is the grit and resiliency. You just mentioned that. You kind of talk about this series and maybe how that was the best example of them bending often but not breaking.
Yeah, I think in the playoffs, it's such an important component. To have that grit and resiliency and toughness. It helped get us here, obviously, to win 54 games, to have the best home record in the NBA, to go 12-1, whatever it was, second night of back-to-backs. But when you're playing against a veteran team like that, with arguably the greatest coach in NBA history, Game 1, we didn't perform. What I liked about it, though, we answered the bell in Game 2. Game 3 was maybe our worst game of the series. Game 4 and Game 5 were great. Game 6, what I was really proud of, Adam, was after Game 6, I didn't have to get up in front of our team and tell them all the things they didn't do. They already knew it. They owned it. Before I even got into them, they knew that we weren't physical enough. They knew that we weren't disciplined enough. We weren't aggressive enough. And tonight, I think, was another great example of them learning from that and coming out there and doing it. I told them before the game, I said, there is no tomorrow. There's got to be no regrets. Don't wake up tomorrow morning and say, man, we weren't physical enough. Don't say we weren't aggressive enough. You got to leave it all out there. And we did that from the jump ball all the way to the end. So, and that's going to be really important moving on. You know, a division opponent, Portland, can't say enough about the job Terry Stotts has done and the level that team is playing at right now. Appreciate it, everybody.
Let's welcome in Joe Borgia, Senior Vice President, Replay and Referee Operations. Okay, during the second quarter of tonight's 76ers-Raptors game, Fred VanVleet was called for a blocking foul as he attempted to stop Ben Simmons from driving towards the basket. Joe, how close of a call was this, and what made it a blocking foul on VanVleet?
Well, Chris, this was a very close call. As a matter of fact, VanVleet initially was in a legal position. So to draw the offensive foul, he has to beat Simmons to the spot, and he has to be directly in his path. And what you're going to see here is he does that right here. However, he makes the mistake of moving forward and slightly to his left as Simmons makes a move around him, and therefore he ended up initiating the illegal contact, and that's why a blocking foul was called.
During the third quarter of tonight's Spurs-Nuggets game, LaMarcus Aldridge made a jump shot from the corner and wanted a foul call on Nikola Jokic. Joe, how does the term hand is part of the ball factor into this play?
Chris, any part of the hand that is touching the